The entire restaurant froze when the waiter threw a glass of water, right at a pregnant woman. But what no one knew was that the woman's husband wasn't just anyone. He owned the entire hotel chain, and that one arrogant act, it was about to change every life in that building, forever. It was supposed to be a quiet Sunday brunch. The elegant lobby of the Grand Haven Hotel shimmered under the soft glow of chandeliers. Gentle jazz played from hidden speakers, blending with the rhythmic clinking of silverware and the low hum of morning conversation. Waiters glided gracefully between tables, pouring coffee and offering croissants to neatly dressed guests. But then, a sharp splash shattered the calm. A cold gasp filled the air as water sprayed across the room. "Did you just throw water? At me?" The voice came from a woman seated near the window, Naomi Brooks, visibly pregnant, clutching her swollen belly as icy droplets trickled down her dress. The white fabric turned translucent under the spill, sticking to her skin. Every head in the restaurant turned toward the commotion. Forks paused midair. A child whispered to his mother, "Mommy, why is that lady crying?" Standing before her, gripping a half-empty pitcher, was a waiter, Tyler. His name tag gleamed under the light, though his face had turned pale. I didn't mean," he stammered, words catching in his throat. His hand trembled as the pitcher clinked softly against a glass. But the damage was done. The moment stretched into silence. Naomi's breath hitched as she tried to steady herself. "I'm pregnant. What on earth is wrong with you?" The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some guests reached for their phones. Others whispered, eyes darting between Naomi and the waiter. Tyler straightened, his expression hardening. "You people always play the victim," he snapped under his breath, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I told you not to sit here without a reservation." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Someone muttered, "Did he really just say that?" Another guest whispered, "Record this." Naomi's eyes widened in disbelief. Her voice shook. "You think I deserve to be treated like this because I don't look like everyone else here?" Tyler avoided her gaze. "I follow rules," he muttered. "This section's for members only. You can't just walk in like you own the place." Naomi wiped her tears with a trembling hand. Her voice softened, but there was heartbreak in every word. "All I did was ask politely if there was an empty table. You told me to wait. I waited. And when I sat down, you came back and threw water on me?" Her words echoed across the restaurant. The live jazz had stopped. Even the pianist froze, hands hovering above the keys. "I just wanted breakfast," she whispered. "That's all." An elderly couple across the room exchanged glances, visibly upset. A young man filmed quietly, shaking his head. "Unbelievable," he murmured. "He just threw water at a pregnant woman." Naomi struggled to rise from her chair. Her soaked dress clung uncomfortably to her legs as she steadied herself against the table. The glass pitcher in Tyler's hand glinted under the light, a cruel reminder of his impulsive act. A voice called from the entrance, "Naomi, what happened?" But before she could answer, Tyler turned his back. "Next time listen when someone says you don't belong," he muttered. Naomi froze. The words hit harder than the water itself. Around her, faces blurred, some sympathetic, some simply curious. She could feel the sting of humiliation deep in her chest. Her voice trembled as she said softly, "I didn't come here to cause trouble. I came here because my husband loves this hotel. He said they treat everyone with respect." The guests murmured in confusion. Her husband loves this hotel? And then came the line that no one in the room could have predicted. Naomi raised her head, her tearful eyes burning with quiet strength. "But what you don't know," she said, her voice steady now, "is that my husband owns every single hotel in this chain." The room fell utterly still. Tyler froze mid-step. The color drained from his face. The guests exchanged stunned glances, disbelief and guilt spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Naomi slowly picked up her purse, took a shaky breath, and added, "You just threw water on the boss's wife." Gasps filled the air once more. Someone whispered, "Oh, he's done." And as Naomi turned toward the entrance, the man who had called her name earlier, tall, calm, and radiating authority, walked closer. The room seemed to recognize him instantly, because that man wasn't just her husband. He was James Brooks, the billionaire CEO of the Grand Haven hotel chain, and the real storm was just about to begin. Minutes later, James Brooks stepped into the lobby. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and composed, dressed not in an expensive suit but in a crisp white shirt with the sleeves slightly rolled up. Yet something about his posture commanded more authority than any three-piece outfit could. His calm presence carried the kind of quiet power that made people instinctively step aside. He'd been upstairs, finishing a business call, when the noise reached him, muffled shouting, gasps, and hurried footsteps. Now, as he looked across the grand lobby, his sharp eyes landed on the one person who mattered most, Naomi. She stood near the entrance of the restaurant, soaked, shivering slightly, one hand resting protectively on her baby bump. Her dress clung to her frame, her eyes red from tears. Guests stared, whispering behind napkins and phones, recording discreetly. "Naomi." James's voice was low but carried weight. "What happened?" The crowd parted slightly as he approached, his calm intensity unsettling everyone nearby. Before Naomi could speak, a portly man in a dark vest hurried forward, Mr. Caldwell, the hotel's floor manager. His forehead glistened with sweat, his forced smile trembling. "Sir, please, we're handling this. There's been a misunderstanding," he said, hands raised in a placating gesture. James looked at him, expression unreadable. "A misunderstanding?" His eyes flicked to Naomi again, then to the waiter standing rigidly by the counter. "Because my wife looks like someone who's been assaulted, not misunderstood." Naomi swallowed hard, her voice shaky but firm. "James, he threw water at me, because I sat at a table without a reservation." All eyes turned to Tyler, the waiter. His arms were crossed now, his expression cold and defensive. "That's not what happened," he muttered. "She came in acting like she owned the place. Didn't wait to be seated. No manners, no reservation. Just walked right in like she was special." A tense silence followed. Even the soft jazz music from the lobby had faded to silence. James's face didn't change, but his jaw tightened. His tone remained calm, too calm. "And that justified throwing water on a pregnant woman?" Tyler gave a dry laugh, trying to mask his growing discomfort. "Look, if she's really pregnant," he said sarcastically, "maybe she shouldn't be eating in fancy hotels anyway. Maybe she should try somewhere simpler." The words dropped like poison into the air. The guests nearby gasped. A woman covered her mouth in shock. A waiter standing behind Tyler looked mortified. Naomi's hand tightened around the edge of the table. Her voice was barely a whisper. "James." James exhaled slowly as if holding back a storm. Then, in a tone smooth as glass, he said, "Okay." That single word sent chills through the room. He turned to Mr. Caldwell. "I'd like to speak privately. In your office." The manager blinked, confused but obedient. "Of course, sir. Right this way." Naomi reached for James's arm, her eyes glistening. "Please don't make a scene. I'm fine." He turned to her gently, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You shouldn't have to be." As they walked toward the office, whispers rippled through the restaurant. "Who is he?" someone asked. "I think he's someone important," another whispered. "He's too calm," a third muttered nervously. Tyler watched them go, his confidence faltering slightly. "What's his problem?" he scoffed, but his voice lacked conviction now. "People act like one mistake is the end of the world." Behind him, a hostess whispered under her breath, "You have no idea who you just messed with." Inside the manager's office, James remained standing while Mr. Caldwell nervously gestured toward a chair. "Please, sir, sit. Let's sort this out." James didn't move. His hands rested on the back of the chair as he said evenly, "Mr. Caldwell, before you explain, I need you to know something." The manager's eyes darted nervously between James and the office door. "Yes, sir?" James's tone was low, steady, but his gaze was unflinching. I'm not just another guest. I'm James Brooks, CEO of the Grand Haven Hotel Group. Caldwell's face went white. Sir? And that woman out there, the one your employee just humiliated, is my wife. The manager froze, mouth slightly open. His mind raced, panic flooding every inch of his expression. Sir, I didn't realize. James finally took a seat, folding his hands calmly. That's the point, he said softly. You shouldn't have to realize who someone is to treat them with respect. Inside the office, the mood shifted instantly. The air was thick, a mix of tension and quiet dread. The soft hum of the air conditioner was the only sound for a few seconds, and even that felt too loud. James Brooks closed the door behind him with deliberate calm, his face expressionless but his eyes burning with quiet fury. He didn't sit right away. He walked slowly to the manager's desk, resting his hands on the polished wood, then finally folded them before him. Mr. Caldwell, he began, his tone low and precise. I'm not just another guest. The manager swallowed hard, trying to steady his shaking hands. My name, James continued, is James Brooks, CEO of Grand Haven Hospitality, the company that owns this hotel. The words hit like a thunderclap. Mr. Caldwell's mouth fell open, his breath caught in his throat. Sir? James's gaze didn't waver. And that woman out there and the one your staff humiliated, she's my wife, the mother of my child. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Even the ticking of the wall clock seemed to pause. I had no idea, sir, Caldwell stammered. Please believe me. If I'd known... James cut him off, his voice rising slightly, still controlled but sharper now. You shouldn't have to know. You shouldn't need a last name or a title to treat someone like a human being. Caldwell's face turned pale as paper, sweat beaded on his forehead. He opened his mouth, but no words came. James straightened, his calm returning, though the fire in his eyes hadn't dimmed. Call every staff member from that restaurant. Right now, the manager hesitated. Sir? James's voice dropped lower, firmer. Everyone? The servers, the hostesses, the chef, all of them. Caldwell nodded quickly and rushed out, his trembling hands fumbling for the radio clipped to his belt. Within minutes, the small office was crowded. Nervous employees lined the walls, their eyes darting nervously between James and the door. Among them stood Tyler, the waiter. His expression was defiant, his arms crossed as if he still had something to prove. James stood at the front, the faint sound of chatter outside fading into nothing. All right, he said finally, his deep voice cutting through the tension. You all saw what happened out there. No one dared to speak. The silence was deafening. James took a step forward. Tell me, he said, scanning their faces. Is this how we treat our guests? Heads lowered. The employees shifted uneasily, exchanging guilty glances but saying nothing. This company, James continued, was built on respect, on dignity. My father started with one small hotel and one simple rule. Every guest matters. Whether they walk in wearing diamonds or denim, they deserve kindness. His words hung in the air. A young hostess's eyes filled with tears. The chef stared at the floor. But Tyler? He rolled his eyes. Look, he muttered. I didn't know she was important, okay? If I had, I wouldn't have done it. The room went still. James turned his gaze on him, his voice calm but cold. You just said the problem out loud. Tyler frowned. What do you mean? James stepped closer, his tone sharper now. You think respect is a reward for importance. It's not. It's the starting point for every person who walks through those doors. Tyler's defiance wavered slightly. He looked down but said nothing. James continued, his voice firm and steady. You didn't just insult my wife. You insulted every person who's ever been made to feel small because of how they look, dress, or sound. That's not who we are. He turned to the rest of the staff. If you can't understand that, you don't belong here. No one dared move. James exhaled slowly, then looked at Mr. Caldwell. Get HR on the phone. There will be consequences, but there will also be lessons. Then, turning back to Tyler, he said quietly, and I hope for your sake, you're ready to learn. The room stayed silent long after James walked out, leaving behind a truth that none of them would forget. Because in that office, beneath the polished company slogans and corporate titles, they'd all just witnessed what leadership, real leadership, looked like. The door creaked open softly. All heads turned. Naomi Brooks stepped inside. No longer the tearful woman from earlier, but calm, composed, and dignified. Her hair, still slightly damp from where water had hit her, framed her face like a quiet crown. Her simple blue dress had been changed, but her presence carried a power that made the entire room fall silent. Even James, standing tall beside the desk, turned toward her with quiet pride. Naomi took a slow breath, her voice gentle but firm. "Tyler," the waiter stiffened. He didn't look up at first, pretending to study a stain on the floor. "Tyler," she repeated, her tone still soft. "Do you know what it feels like to be judged before you even open your mouth? To have people look at your skin, your clothes, or your face and then decide who you are before you've even said a word?" He didn't answer. The air grew heavy again. Naomi took a few steps closer. Her heels clicked against the tile, echoing like a heartbeat in the stillness. "You didn't just spill water on me," she continued, voice trembling slightly, not with fear, but conviction. "You spilled hate. You spilled assumptions, and you did it to someone who would have still smiled at you, still tipped you, still wished you a good day." Tyler's jaw tightened. He looked up, his eyes full of discomfort, not yet remorse. Naomi looked at the staff standing along the walls. Some of them avoided her gaze, others looked down, shame washing over their faces. Even Mr. Caldwell, the manager, couldn't meet her eyes. "I've been in places where people stared at me because they thought I didn't belong," Naomi said softly. But this was different. This was supposed to be a place of warmth, a place that welcomed people from all walks of life. "Instead, you made me feel like an intruder in my husband's own house." Her words landed like weights in the room. No one moved. James stepped forward, his calm authority filling the space once more. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, his voice even but commanding. "Tyler, you're suspended indefinitely pending a full HR review." Tyler's head snapped up. "What, for one mistake?" James didn't flinch. "Throwing water on a pregnant woman is not a mistake. It's a choice. And it says everything about how you see people." Tyler scoffed, but his voice cracked slightly. "This is overkill." James ignored the outburst and turned to Mr. Caldwell. "You'll implement a mandatory diversity and sensitivity training for all staff by next week. Not just the restaurant team, everyone. I want every person under this roof to understand what respect actually means." Caldwell nodded quickly. Yes, sir, absolutely, it'll be done," James continued, his tone steady. "Every guest deserves the same treatment, whether they're a billionaire or a bus driver, a CEO or a cleaner. The moment we forget that, we lose the heart of what this company was built on." The employees shifted uneasily. Knowing he was right, Tyler muttered under his breath, "This is ridiculous." James's head turned sharply. His eyes locked on Tyler's, his calm expression giving way to quiet intensity. "What's ridiculous," he said slowly, "is thinking that kindness depends on someone's status." The room went dead silent. Even the ticking of the clock seemed to stop. James stepped closer. "You thought you were being strong by putting someone down. But strength isn't in humiliation. It's in humility." Tyler's face softened, the defiance fading. For the first time, he looked ashamed. Naomi's eyes glistened, but she smiled faintly. Not out of triumph, but out of hope. "Maybe one day," she said quietly, "you'll understand what that really means." James nodded toward the staff. "Meeting's over. I want this to be the last time anyone in this company feels unwelcome under our roof." As the employees filed out silently, Tyler lingered, glancing once more at Naomi. She gave him a small, forgiving nod before turning to leave with her husband. And, in that moment, amidst the silence and the weight of hard lessons, every person in that room knew something had changed. The company wasn't just about luxury anymore. It was about respect. A week later, the entire Grand Haven hotel chain made national headlines. CEOs, "Powerful response to racist incident at Grand Haven Hotel goes viral." News outlets replayed the footage of James's calm but firm confrontation in the restaurant. Social media was ablaze with admiration. Thousands praised the couple not only for standing up against discrimination, but for doing so with grace instead of anger. Naomi's photo spread like wildfire. She was standing in the hotel lobby, a soft smile on her face, gently holding her baby bump. There was peace in her eyes, not resentment. She hadn't wanted fame. She had only wanted fairness. But her composure, her dignity, and her husband's quiet strength spoke louder than any speech could. The story became a symbol, a reminder that respect shouldn't depend on someone's wealth, color, or title. It became a message that touched hearts all across the country. Meanwhile, in a small apartment across town, Tyler sat on his couch, scrolling through the endless stream of articles and videos. Every post, every comment, every photo was a painful reflection of what he'd done. He replayed that day over and over again in his mind. Naomi's shocked expression, the glass of water spilling down her clothes, and the stunned silence that followed. At first he told himself she deserved it, but now, as the world celebrated her poise and condemned his cruelty, that lie no longer worked. He shut off his phone, his chest tight. For the first time in years, he felt small. Then, a few days later, a letter arrived in his mailbox, official letterhead from Grand Haven Hospitality. Tyler hesitated before opening it. His heart raced, expecting more humiliation, maybe even legal trouble. But when he unfolded the paper, the words took him by surprise. Tyler, everyone makes mistakes. What matters is whether we learn from them. You're welcome to reapply for a position with us, but only after you complete a customer care course and 40 hours of volunteer work. This isn't punishment. It's a chance to grow. James Brooks. Tyler stared at the letter for a long time. He read it once, then twice. Then again, there was no anger in it, no hatred, just truth, and a strange kind of mercy he didn't think he deserved. For the first time in years, he felt humility, and with that humility came something else: determination. Over the next few months, Tyler kept his word. He took the customer service course, sat through long nights learning about empathy, active listening, and emotional intelligence. He spent weekends volunteering at a homeless shelter, serving meals to people who had nothing, realizing how fragile human dignity could be, and how much a little kindness mattered. It wasn't easy. But slowly, his heart began to change. 3 months later, Tyler walked into the same hotel lobby where it all began. But this time, not as a waiter, as a trainee in guest relations. His uniform was different. His attitude was too. As fate would have it, Naomi came by that afternoon, visiting the hotel with her newborn baby in her arms. When Tyler saw her, his stomach turned with guilt. He approached cautiously, his voice trembling. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, truly. I've learned a lot since that day." Naomi looked at him for a moment, then smiled softly. "That's all I ever wanted to hear," she said. The two shared a brief nod, not of friendship, but of understanding. As she walked away, the camera pans out, Naomi holding her baby, James walking beside her, sunlight streaming through the grand glass ceiling. In that moment, the air itself seemed filled with grace, forgiveness, and growth, because sometimes the most powerful lesson isn't about status, revenge, or pride. It's about something far greater: respect.